Hello and welcome to the Stream of Chaos. My name is Dave and I will be your keeper of arcane lore for this session of Call of Cthulhu. Today we are returning to our playthrough of the Order of the Stone. You can get your own copy of this campaign over at chaosium.com. We are playing live on Twitch and all of our videos are collected over on the Chaosium YouTube channel. We resume in Chapter 3, the final chapter, where our heroes have successfully investigated Greyport. Unfortunately did lose one of their crew, the Captain Bernie Green, but where we pick the story back up, they have returned to Arkham. 1 week has passed, during which they have begun to recover, and now, with 3 weeks before the estimated opening of the third and ultimate urn, they begin their preparations to go and stop the summoners from awakening Agran, Talon, to Soth. So, as I mentioned, it's been a week, and you've been able to recover somewhat. Your wounds have mostly healed, or at least scabbed over. Your mind has begun to re-knit itself, at least a little, and you are turning your attention back to this impossible task. You've also had a chance to mourn Captain Green's passing and come to terms with that in your own ways. We'll go around the table, and what I'd like is to learn what you've done in this first week, kind of focusing on like self-care and hospital visits is probably the most sensible. We're going to break order slightly. We're going to go Art, then James, and then we're going to have Jackson, because his character is going to be how we introduce Alex and Nance. Alright, so Art, can you tell us how Luce has spent this week back in Arkham? Also, a city that you don't really know super well. It's just where Dr. Bethnal's based.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Art. I'm playing Luce McAllister. Mechanic?
Oh no.
Do we still have a ship? I'm not sure. Is the ship still around, or have we off the poor girl?
I think I'm probably going to be planning to sell it. I
think it's Gaspar. Gaspar is the owner. So it's his ship to do with. It's just whether he wants to continue crewing it.
Yeah,
Gaspar,
so I figured you just want the money, but yes, of course.
Do you have an idea, Jackson? What's happened with the ship? Or...
That's a good question. I assumed we'd be keeping it, but maybe there's too many bad memories there. Let's see how my recovery is tracking.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, all right. So the ship was kind of put in like a dock. It's been covered and
yeah.
We put it in storage.
Yeah.
Is Arkham on the sea?
It's not, but there's a river.
Oh heck. Can you get a fishing boat through a river? I guess we did.
If you believe in yourself, you can. I think you can.
Yeah. It can be on like a dry dock
docks,
or something.
Yeah, they ship, I think.
Yeah. There's definitely docks. We've had fights down at those docks.
In that case, I'm a vaguely angry, vaguely Scottish person with an axe and a a spanner and an axe to grind.
That's
there
good.
we go. That's what I was looking for. Luce, we've established that Luce is someone who, when things get difficult, or when things when things scare them, or if they're stressed about something, if they're sad about, they do a lot of processing via violence.
Mm-hmm.
That's also the way that they, bring themselves joy before going out on a fishing trip. There's just a little bit of rough and tumble that exists in all aspects of Luce's life. And I think that grieving the loss of someone that they looked up to as a friend and almost as pseudo family to some extent, definitely has an element of, well, I'm just gonna do what I do throughout the day, and then I'm gonna go and find either some kind of lumber camp, or just a camp that people go to whatever, or I will just go out into the nearest forest.
Yep.
I'm gonna hit trees real hard with an axe. I'm gonna practice those swings.
Are you hitting the gym?
Yeah. Well, not
delete
our Jim.
Facebook.
He's very special, and we don't hit him ever. He's important. We got to protect the gentle egg that
I've
is
been
Jim.
told not to.
Got to keep that shell nice and crisp. Yeah. So yes, Luce is absolutely hitting the gym. It's just that in this case, the gym is a bunch of large trees and a fire axe.
Yep.
So most of what Luce has done, and I think this works really well with the points that I've spread around, has done a little bit of like socializing in the university tavern or wherever we can, we're a milk bar of the evening, which means that I have a tiny little bit of extra charm.
Nice.
And otherwise, all of my improvements went into axe.
Okay. Were you particularly damaged or maddened from the fun? I think you got up pretty unscathed, right?
Yeah, in terms of like actual physical damage, or even like magic related stuff, I was fine. I had lost, I think, my notes, I lost 10 sanity over the course of the last thing, and I gained all of that back with the sanity improvement, sanity recovery that we got for doing a bunch of good shit.
Yeah.
So Luce is like, outside of, being currently not very lucky, we'll see whether that improves or not. Definitely the resource that Luce lent the heaviest on was luck.
Yeah.
And somehow that is that kind of makes sense. You kind of come out of things unscathed if you're lucky.
Yeah,
enough.
definitely. Yeah.
So yeah.
It also shows that, like with the sanity refund scheme, you're, I guess, able to kind of like justify, like it seems like the efforts you're doing are working, not without sacrifice certainly, but like you are able to go up against things, and if you can put them back to bed, you can right the balance, at least in some way.
Well, Luce is angry. Like, Luce is mad, but not like mad is angry, and like that'll fuel a lot of action. Generally speaking, rights injustices, puts beasties into the ground, that kind of thing.
That's it. Perfect. We'll go across next to James with Paul and see what he's been up to in the last week.
Very good. Yes. Hello. I am a fragile egg, Jim, playing Paul, the former first mate, but now that the ship's future is in flux, who can say? I think that I've been doing mostly logistical stuff. I think that there is probably an understanding that I would have not. Gaspar is the inheritor of the ship in all ways, but I think there is a sort of I've got to take it through the car wash and make sure it's filled up on petrol and get all the chewing gum off the from under the dash and before it gets handed over. So I've been kind of leaning through with that, and also I think probably making a couple of calls to make sure that we as a crew are ready to move on when we need to our to the ridge.
Yeah, so you got a location from a scrawled note, not scrambled, well, both, that Tobias was able to claim, and it said Chopaktor Ridge, which is about 3 hours drive from here, and definitely a drive situation. So I guess if you're taking point in it, do you think you've already arranged transport, or are you going to sort something out later? You going around to all the car dealerships?
Yeah, I think I have taken some of my still leftover dollars from our first expedition. I'm organized to rent a car. It's not, look, I don't have high mission logistics here, but I'm sorting out the whole details. I also think I've got a map of the area. I'm taking some notes. I'm researching.
And so, I mean,
could I make a library use about the ridge or
not
something
yet.
Potentially later?
We'll have you do that after, because this is your kind of recovery thing. This is you still like healing up and whatever. So I guess with that in mind, is this how Paul kind of recovers? Like, is this the sanity coming back? It's getting things in order, straightening up everything?
Yes, I think that it is a way to not necessarily avoid processing everything, but just to add a layer of normality over to it. I think that Paul is probably kind of starting to rationalize things like, well, Bernie was kind of old. Just anything to sort of cheer himself up, which is not really appropriate in the situation. But I think just working and doing stuff makes it all a little more straightforward.
Yeah, I know you mentioned you put some points into law, so you might be the one that's enacting the will and like the actual transfer of the vessel across to Gaspar, just getting all of those in order. You may have arranged accommodation for everyone while you're in town, those sort of like just practical matters.
It's all of that stuff going on.
Very first mately. Yeah, perfect. Okay.
I was going to say more like a valet, but that's fine.
You can change title.
Valet is fine. They're synonymous. The other one might be, depending on what you're planning, Gaspar, I might start arranging a funeral.
Yeah.
Let's see how Gaspar's recovery is going.
It's actually something you might intend to do before you leave. So let's see how Gaspar's recovery is going. How do I want to do this? Yeah, let's Jackson, we won't do the roll yet, but just introduce Gaspar and kind of
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Jackson, and I'm playing Gaspar Green, the cabin boy of the Foggy Sea. I should know the name of the ship. The Foggy Sea, and grandson of the now deceased Captain Green, who wasn't doing so hot before he witnessed the death of his beloved grandmother, Captain Grandma. And
Bro, you get
doing
bullied
worse after. Gaspar was dredging the bottom of his barrel of sanity, but thanks to some improvements after finishing the scenario, he's okay to limp on just a little bit longer, as long as he gets some help. And so that's, I think, one of the driving forces behind coming to Arkham. Maybe it wasn't the driving force. Gaspar thought better go see Dr. Bethnal about the research that we need to do into the occultism. And I think Dr. Bethnal, having some psychology of his own, probably realized that this kid needs help. And so that's where he's been for the last week, is, trying to study with Dr. Bethnal the scrolls and the history of the urns and everything, but maybe using that as an excuse to try to bottle up and suppress the events of last week, while Bethnal is probably trying to help him in some way with his recovery.
Yeah, possibly shows why Paul's needed to go through and do some of the practical matters if Gaspar's separating himself. As far as the recovery, do you think is Gaspar aware of how far he's fallen, so to speak, or does he think things are okay in the front of the mind, the part that doesn't?
Yeah. I mean, last session I was saying Jackson doesn't think Gaspar's going to last, but you know what? Nothing bad's happened yet. So why would Gaspar think he's, doing poorly?
One thing bad happened.
But not to him. I think he's doing a real good job of bottling it all up, cramming it down deep inside, and that's a sustainable solution.
It is worth saying that until you get some treatment, you are still indefinitely insane, and that paranoia has come to the fore. How is that manifesting in these sort of early days as treatment is ongoing and hopefully be resolved soon?
You know what? I think maybe he hasn't spoken to Paul or Luce since he got here, for no reason that he can justify or explain, but just can't do it. Doesn't know if he's safe around the people where all the terrible things happened. And so that's why probably Paul has had to take on so much, because Gaspar is put up a wall. He's already putting up a wall. He's already putting up his early teenager wall, and now he's got his trauma wall behind his early teenager wall. It's just walls all the way
What are
down.
walls? Yeah, and it's probably unfortunately just self-fulfilling because as Paul pushes to try to help, it just looks to you as though now he's coming for the ship. You know, like everything's going wrong. Okay, well, wow, this boy needs some help, and fortunately, help is on the way.
Wait, this boy needs therapy?
Yeah, that's that.
us
Damn,
that.
I could have set that up too. Alex, can you please introduce Nancy and tell us what you've been doing this last week?
Well, Nancy Lewis is a psychology postgrad at Miskatonic University, a student roughly of Dr. Bethnal, different departments, but as part of her psychology studies, she developed an interest in the way that different mental concerns were treated in different parts of the world and sought out the assistance of an anthropologist to that end. Long story short, occult shit. So I have never seen any occult shit, and I'm not sure if it's, really a real thing or if it's just the way that people deal with particular maladies of the mind by ascribing it to a higher, different, unknowable, horrifying power, which honestly that seems a little bit more likely to me. I mean, there's not really any such thing as real magic, Anyway, Dr. Bethnal brought this poor young man to the psychology department at Miskatonic University in dire need of assistance. Dire need of assistance. And I've been doing what I can with him.
Anything you can to try to help? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you've been
Just helping out.
You've been kept a little bit in the loop by Dr. Bethnal because he's been kind of racing around. I mean, you would have heard about like the SS Champagne and Dr. Sebastian, and then the death propping up, and especially within the student population, rumors are just flying around that Sebastian went rogue. He's probably having an affair with one of these students that he's raced off with. It's obviously gone wrong. They have a lover's cabin out in Greyport, and then things like devolved further. It's just, and then something to do with the champagne, the storm. It's just maddening. And you've seen Bethnal kind of in the heart of this storm, trying to manage elements of it, and also looking into very curious things that at points you've been able to assist with in the library and otherwise.
Not very curious. Anthropologist, though, it's better him than me, I suppose.
That's it.
But if it helps calm the soul and soothe the mind, then sure.
Yeah. So your focus amongst all this, though, has, especially most recently, been turned to Gaspar. The three of we'll kind of zoom in on this for a moment. The two of you met when Gaspar and his colleagues, Luce and Paul, as you're introduced, met with Dr. Bethnal at the Miskatonic University. There they had updated him a bit on what was going on. They were organizing meetings with the Order of the Stone and otherwise. And in your capacity, you joined and were able to see just how sort of removed Gaspar was from it all. Actually, I'll kind of pass it to you guys. Do you think like Gaspar was like in the hallway, like refusing to like join, or were you in the room and Nancy, you were brought in to give feedback and direction?
Well, I think I'm encouraging him to go on this field trip. I think it's important you need to retain your support structure. I understand that, these are the people who were there when you witnessed all these horrible things, but you all went through that together. And I'm not advising any kind of trauma bonding, obviously, but this is your support network and has been for a very long time, and refusing to speak to them and cutting them off is not going to help you in the long run. And I think it's about the point where you need to recognize that.
And supportive enough to get us out of the situation, so I just
you
need to
are
learn
still
more.
here.
I just need to get stronger so that I can handle myself.
Right. You've told me a little bit about these people, and I can't imagine you would have gotten very far without that young woman and her axe, correct? Well, wide open skies and a little bit of fresh air might do you good. How about this then? You go on this field trip with these people who you're not sure if you trust anymore. I'll come along with you, impartial observer. And maybe you're right. I'm not saying that you're not correct. Maybe these are not good people for you to be around. But you owe it to yourself and to your grandmother to give them one last chance. And if this isn't good for you, I'll drop it. We can pitch a tent somewhere out in the big wide open, and you can read your books and do some camping in the ways of all of the great novelists.
Okay.
But give it a go, yes?
I'll go just to show that I don't need them anymore.
Perfect.
Nancy and Gaspar have been spending quite a bit of time together in this first week, particularly. Nancy, you are you've been a student at the Miskatonic University. You've graduated and returned to continue study. You know your way around the Orn Library like few others do. You're also in contact with a number of the other professors there, and you're pretty well liked by most of the academic spread. Such as to say, you're very helpful for a wizard who might want to do some research. And I think, Gaspar, you found just the practical elements of Nancy's assistant very rewarding. She's also pretty good at kind of just leveling you out, getting direction. And Nancy being able to, like, just at lunch at least, let's go for a walk and let's, like, go get food somewhere else. Let's not just get lost in this. Let's, you know, try and take in just more than just
having
this.
Having a local as well makes it feel a bit more homey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the three of you, Luce, Gaspar, and Paul, may have, probably, unless it was separate to your fishing career, probably wouldn't have been to Arkham. And you do find it is a little, can be a little insular in areas. There's a lot of people that come here to study. Strange.
Arkham, weird. No.
I don't think so. There's a lot of people that come to the Miskatonic University to study. So, like, setting up around the campus lets you see a lot of people and kind of get into the community a bit. It also gives you access to a lot of the libraries and things. So it's a very sensible place to base yourselves. But yeah, with Nancy's assistance and the support of Dr. Bethnal and others, you've been able to at least get a little bit comfortable here. We're going to kind of come back in with the beginning of this second week. Tobias has been handed over to the St. Mary's Teaching Hospital on campus, but it's also very much a practical hospital, and he's there under the care of the doctors and nurses that work there. I don't know if you guys have checked in on him a whole lot. That's kind of up to you, but yeah, okay, that's great. You'll see that he is recovering, and Nancy, when you visit him or become aware of him, you'll know that he is also very much not to the he's in a similar state to Gaspar, and actually where Gaspar is sort of focusing in on research and trying to control things, Tobias just has a anger about him, a sort of righteous rage that sees itself lashing out at staff quite a bit, and he's had to be, not like to the point of hurting anyone, but he has had to be restrained a couple of times, just in like so that he can, you know, get the rest that he needs. He keeps on trying to leave, and as this week draws to a close, he will basically can't remember the term exactly, but self-exit. Like, he just says, I no longer want, I'm asserting my rights and I'm leaving, despite recommendations and to the otherwise, and he will return back to the Order of the Stone headquarters, which are a little ways out of Boston on a farmyard property. You have the four of you, well, the three principally, arranged a meeting with Michelle for later today, this afternoon. She's been in contact with you a couple times. You met her briefly when you returned and Tobias was admitted. She was very grateful, very responsive. She gave her commiserations for Captain Green's passing, and she reasserted that, like, we have time, we believe, to get some rest, to make some preparations. We can do this properly. But once you're well, and once we've finished our studies, we would very much like to speak with you. And that time has just about come. Last things we'll do is we're going to each roll our luck for this chapter. We've kind of adapted the Rivers of London system a little bit because we enjoyed it very much, and because we're luck users in general. So we are going to roll 3d6 times 5 for each character, and you will have this for this chapter. It can also kind of set the stage, like where are we feeling? Is this character going in lucky, or is this character going in with the tank's already a little empty? And then, nice, we're going to have Nancy roll a psychoanalysis roll for Gaspar's recovery. See if she can help him out. Okay, very even so far.
Punk.
That is the same result, actually, so that's 3 60s.
Yep. 60, 60, 60. It's almost like a statistically
Luce just
likely.
has to show that it'd be a little bit better.
I mean, I feel like,
Lucky.
given that I fully went,
Well, yeah.
I don't know exactly how many luck I had at the beginning of like the last session that we played. Probably similar, but
You
I
had
went from something like 60 luck to for those who wanted to know what my luck was, when I was like, hey, I'm not gonna tell you what it is, I think I had dropped it to 13.
Yeah.
Like I
Ooh.
went from 60 to 13 and
Auspicious.
and then did a little finagling so that it wasn't quite it ended up being 15. I was on 15 luck for the remainder of that whole set. So from the
Heaps.
point that we put the symbol on the boat, 15 luck. So it's wild that was a thing. But yeah, so I feel like I'm all about taking big hits to luck. I don't use it a lot, but when I use it, it's gonna be a lot at once. That's how we roll.
Yeah.
Just on the topic of Tobias, Dave, Luce definitely went to like check in and probably actually like sit with Tobias a little bit, because I think like there was probably like an acknowledgement of like, oh, this is someone who's not necessarily exactly the same, like in terms of what's driving it, but is in a very similar boat to me in that, or Luce, in that he's angry and so's Luce. And I think that there's maybe a little bit of, I don't think Luce has any ill will towards Tobias, because I don't think he actually did anything directly to Luce, and mostly didn't do anything to anyone specifically, just threw himself in harm's way like an idiot. But I suspect Tobias doesn't particularly like us very much. So I think there's an element of giving Tobias something nearby in a space that he's kind of confined in to be angry at.
Yeah. He's very strongly opposed to the Foggy Seas crew. He is basically like still in indefinite insanity. He took a massive hit in the casting of the spell that he'd never verified. Also in seeing the entirety of the young men placed under his command killed under his watch. He also saw some horrors and other things. Justifiable or not, he's decided to take that out on pretty much everyone else, although a psychologist or Nancy would probably say that a lot of this is stemming from a basically self-hatred at this point, and he's very much, he wants to do things properly, he wants to prove himself, he has failed to do so. The only thing he was able to do successfully was cast that spell, and
Set
he's
the house on
really
fire.
locked in on that as
Setting
his
things on fire.
as his ability. So he's re-elevated himself because he's found something that no one else can do, and he's decided that that's what makes him special. You will find your attendances at the hospital pretty unpleasant, as he rails at you for a while, sees that doesn't get much interaction, directs it elsewhere, turns around.
I think
and
there is an element of
ultimately
like
leaves.
Luce is aware of what angry people will do, because she is one, and like there is anger that is directed in a healthy way, or like you can be aggressive or violent without being angry behind it. That's what like a ridiculous bar fight, or you go to a metal gig and everyone starts punching each other in the
Yep.
mosh pit. Like none of that stems from like a real sense of anger at the thing that you're enacting violence towards.
Yeah.
But also like is aware that if Tobias is already angry, I think Luce is also kind of there to give Tobias something to be angry at that isn't the staff, because the staff don't deserve to be like punched or hit or whatever. And Luce has been punched and hit and will happily just like be a bit of a punching bag. So I think specifically because Luce is in such a like solid physical and mental state at the moment, has I think maybe the capacity to go, I've seen this kind of behavior before and I don't want this young man to be an absolute shite to all of these people who are just trying to do their job. So I'm going to go in and like, if he rails at me and it looks like he's going to turn on the staff, I'll give him something to like focus him back on me so that he like gets angry at me again. And I'm not trying to inflame the fact that he doesn't like me. I am absolutely being like, and you know, there is a level of, I see you, but I'm absolutely drawing his attention towards me. Almost always, if he starts to arc up, I'm like, you want a go, mate? All right, come on then. You couldn't take me if you tried. I'll tie one arm behind me back just to make it fair. Like, just really kind of giving him something to get aggro at, but in a way that's very silly, in a way that's very like, it's not at all about you did bad things to us, we did bad things to you. It's, oh, you want to go? All right then, come on, let's go. Like, just that kind of attitude.
Yeah, I can definitely see this backfiring. I'll ask you to make a roll of some sort. Because
maybe before you go in, just have a look up and down the hallway and just like move any fire extinguishers you see a little bit closer to his room.
I think there is an element of like, I'm also doing this kind of with the staff around.
Yeah.
And like with sort of like, if they're like, stop doing that, I will obviously leave.
They probably will. I'm thinking, like, I think at this point they're like, I think they've got it. I think like coming in and I think you're able to like deflect him one times when you're there and you see it and you kind of remind him that there are other people that know where he lives and know his people, and if he makes an ass of himself here, it won't just be a nothing. Apart from that, I think they'll probably just try and like just remove distractions. And the only other option that I can see for him besides self-checking out and going back to the order is if he was involuntarily admitted to an asylum. One of Arkham's famous. There's a pretty reasonable chance of that happening. I'd call it a roll of the dice. Does anyone want to weigh that scale one way or the other? Or otherwise, I've got his character sheet. I might roll like a social check on his behalf to see if he's able to not have it happen.
I mean, I think if
Sanity
there's
check?
like,
Yeah,
I was
sanity
gonna
check
say, I
works.
think there's an element of like, Luce is not attempting to start fights or like she is presenting something that he can get angry at and is definitely like going, you know, they're like, come on, go for it then, but is absolutely like, there's no stepping towards someone, putting up a barrier. It's just words. It's just like, Luce is so relaxed, is so chill. It's essentially someone arcing up at a pub and turning around and being like, do you wanna? Because we can.
It's still so funny,
But,
just like you turning up and they're like, who are you here to see? And you go like, oh, Tobias O'Shaughnessy, and they go, family or friends, your friends. You go through and they just stand there. He hurls abuse at you for a while and you go like, well, back to the pub.
It's sailors.
And you bring in your fire axe.
Very quickly, because it might be relevant. We got his favorite little scroll precious canister thing
that's true. That's
that
true.
his order has been guarding for 1,000 years, and he kind of, I don't know if he necessarily registered that we got it, because he was pretty insane when we kind of scooped him up.
He was mad and unconscious. He was dying when you got it.
Yeah, we saved his life.
You could lie and say that you lost it.
I was, well, at the very least, I think we will get a lot of photos taken of it so we can have all the information for reference later or something. But do we want to
We would be giving that
build
back.
bridges or just keep it? Hand it to his sister.
I think there's
His sister would probably be
Luce
the
would
most logical
suggest
one.
giving it to Michelle. Because, like,
if Gaspar got it, he's still got it. He's
Yeah.
not talking to yous.
Fair enough.
I don't.
But
I
you,
did.
you're the ship's wizard.
Because he
that's
would
true,
want to
that's
bring
true.
it.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to bring it to Bethnal.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Would Gaspar then give it
for
through
what's worth,
Bethnal give it
just
to Michelle?
You can kind of close the loop too, because Michelle was very taken with Captain Green and your crew's success. She's it's not as far as good. She's right. You're the most competent people in the in the region. She's pretty happy for you to keep it. She will ask that long term it comes back to them, and she wants to work with you. But especially talk up Gaspar a bit. Yeah. She wants you to study it. She wants you to help with this.
Much like really expensive instruments.
Yeah.
Most of the instruments that really famous people play are not theirs. They are on permanent loan because those things are really expensive and tend to belong to like museums and shit.
Subscription service creeping into everything these days. If I can't own a Stradivarius,
All right, I'm gonna.
It's a loan, like permanent loaners in like they don't pay for it. They get to play it because they're the best in the world. Yeah, sorry, Dave, to your point of like getting this guy potentially sent to asylum.
I rolled for it.
Okay.
Get in the
Great.
asylum. I think
Bye.
he
I
has.
just saw asylum time, bucko.
He tries
Bye,
one too many
Belinda.
times, and last you've seen, he is straitjacketed and being carted off to somewhere where a whole other campaign will probably happen. Let's find out if Gaspar's
have,
going
like,
there
a-
too.
Hopefully they have like an anti-magic ward.
I
At the very
think
least a fire. They
I think
probably
it's
have
called
a fire-
straitjacket,
Exactly.
and if he chants in Latin, gag him. And that tends to work pretty well.
We should track everybody who gets sent to Arkham Asylum, and once we have a full cadre of NPCs there, we can do a session playing as one of each of them.
And then we'll
Break
also
out of
do
the
Well,
I'll be
the
some
hams.
kind of insanity squad.
Yeah.
Actually, would be a pretty fun scenario. Definitely a pulp one. Dr. Bethnal's putting together a team. All right. Well, actually, Nancy's got a bit of like you pull this straight. That's wasted. All right, let's do that roll. Nancy, do you want to? So you've described your care a little bit. Do you want to add any other spice before you make the roll?
I think it's really just at the point now where it's okay, well, you've been refusing to speak to your friends, but I'll make you a deal because my money's on that once you get out there and once you actually are around people who have seen what you have seen and who get it and who also miss your grandmother and working towards something productive instead of just sitting in a library all the time. As somebody who always sits in a library, I do recognize the benefit of fresh air, the silly little walk for our silly little mental health. So it's now a deal of like, I'm pretty sure that once he gets out there, it will in fact help. So I'm comfortable basically making the offer of, if you hate it, we'll go home.
Yeah.
I
Perfect.
can say now with 100% confidence that Gaspar does not deserve Nancy.
No one deserves
And
Nancy.
he will do nothing to earn this kind of treatment.
Although
And
to
it's
be
gonna
fair,
go in her PhD
this-
thesis anyway.
in this case, Nancy may in fact be wrong. The outside is where all the bad stuff is for us specifically.
There's a whole chapter of more bad stuff to come. Nancy, can you give us a psychoanalysis roll? And you can take a bonus dice because you'll be doing it with Bethnal's care and also with like the support of like Gaspar's crew and elements and blah 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 blah. Basically, roll twice. Jesus.
Oh
Okay.
my.
All right. Well, no point bonusing because that's as good as it's gonna get. Nicely done.
But I just want to get it out of the system just in case it screws me later, superstition.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this kind of shows
Well,
Nancy.
that's not bloody bad.
Nancy is a credit to the psychology wing at Arkham. You kind of get it to the core. With that, I'll give a little bit more just on Nancy because you do study. You look into Gaspar and you'll just note a few more things because gaze into the mirror and blah blah blah. He's definitely on the brink of this all. You can see that it's manifesting primarily in paranoia. and a lack of trust of people, and that is something that you will need to work quite carefully to dismantle, but that is what you're doing. You're working on like rebuilding up the relationships of trust that he already had, and then you'll move on to the next stage of things. You're doing so as a sort of neutral observer and staying outside of that sphere so that he doesn't have something else to target it at. You do also see that he genuinely, not as genuinely believes, he has experienced some terrible things, and they come up regularly enough in your sessions, like just when you're studying and things, for you to begin to get a feel of what it is that this crew collectively has experienced. And in your humble opinion, they probably all need some level of like care, based on the things that they have seen. Also, I think this is more a question for Jackson. Does Nancy get a feel for how far Gaspar would go to maintain his autonomy and ability? Like, does she see a little glimmer at the bottom of this all, or like what's at the core just now?
I think she would see that he's really on knife's edge, in that teenagery way. Like, he's still forming, core memories, as it were. And yeah, another event could definitely push him either way.
Yeah. So
that's a bullshit on the fence answer, but well, I keep my options open. Damn it.
I get you. No, this currently could go either way. And I think as far as like the suggestion of like taking a trip with friends and stuff, if it goes well, it definitely will help him. Even if it goes poorly though, I think you can see that even if he removed himself from that and they went on without him, that abandonment would probably push him over as well. So you're kind of in this like catch-22 of like, he needs to go with them, he needs to be included, but also if things go wrong, it could be really bad for him. So you have this like, responsibility of care almost to support that. Do you have any other questions, I guess, about Gaspar's psyche, Nancy? Hey, while you're inside, you want to poke around anywhere else?
I guess it would be out of the whole paranoia thing. Where do his former companions and the people we might be meeting on this trip stand? Are there individuals who stand out as more trustworthy and less worthy of the paranoia? Are there ways in that may be slightly more open than others? If we know, Michelle and the Order of the Stone are going to be there, or if they're going to be part of it, they're clearly not the focus of this paranoia.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think.
Yeah, between Paul and Lucy, is there somebody that Nancy may have to be a little bit more kid glovesy with?
We will take
think so.
Personally.
I think it's the both of them, because it's like Paul took me away from Bernie, and Luce was there when Bernie died. Was Joe there as well? Was Joe like on the
Joe was
scene
present. Joe was
when
on the
he
ship
died?
with Bernie and Luce, and I think
Like,
also
right nearby.
Is Joe still with us, or is he taking the opportunity now to be like, Mom, because like.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. While the ship's not working, he's not. I don't want to. We'll come back to that basically. There's a question mark around it. Sorry, but we'll resolve this first.
Weirdly enough, right now the paranoia is more on the people who were around when he had his snaps and when Bernie died.
Yep.
So it probably extends to Tobias, but not Michelle, I think, and not Bethnal.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, first of all, Gaspar, you can restore a D3 of sanity for that success. And you can also, you're now going to make a sanity roll, and if you succeed it, you are no longer definitely insane. Given Nancy did get an extreme, actually, I think I have been called out for being a little liberal with bonus dice in the past.
I was just reading the rules as well. Yeah.
Oh, you definitely you don't get shit. You succeeded. You're making the thing.
It says a result of 0 to 1 to 95 is a success.
Yeah.
So there was no such thing as an extreme as far as the rules go.
Yeah, we've given him out bits and pieces in the past. I think.
I mean, we're liberal with bonus dice and luck because it makes watching our game more fun.
Otherwise, quickly, like, does it
It's
have
fun
a
to do.
treatment timeline? Because we could potentially, I mean, it could be a cool thing if we decide to burn another week.
It is traditionally measured
it's a
in
month.
months, but I think I've tightened that up to be weeks just to keep pace going.
I think you're being too generous.
I think
Dave.
I
It's
agree.
either-
I think we're going to do a straight roll, but we're going to keep it on. We'll keep the week time frame for this first one, but I think it's going to be a straight roll. I think we'll just sit with this
We've
as it
only got
lands.
a week.
Yeah.
We've only got a week before the world ends anyway, right?
Yeah. And if you have to do it mad, you have to do it mad.
Oh, right. But we didn't have a month. Yeah, I see what you mean.
right.
We compressed it into a week. That's the kindness. All
Yeah.
right, great. So sanity roll.
Get it.
Bored.
Okay.
So, I did increase 1 point of sanity.
Hey.
Thank you, Nancy.
We'll take it.
So I'm up to 27, but I'm still indefinitely insane,
hell?
which means a single point lost will send me into a bout of madness.
Send him over. I think, Nance, you can be functionally continuing your care. Honestly, I might double it, and if we get to the end of this next 2-week period before the event, we can repeat things, but who knows what comes up in that intervening time. So definitely on a knife's edge, and although he is responding to it, he is certainly not cured yet. Okay. So you have a meeting with Michelle and the Order this evening. They are based outside of Boston. If Paul has arranged the car that you're possibly going to take on the trip anyway, you can drive out to it. It's like a couple hours out. It's not like super close. And then you'll be able to return late, or you can probably just stay out there for the night. It'll probably be left to you.
Testing all the camping gear that I've also picked up for us that we know that we'll probably be using on the ridge.
Yeah, I mean, a truck's probably the most functional one for this objective, but wide enough that you can fit the 4 of us. I also do like you getting a rental, because you have to know that it's going to explode or get flattened by a monster. Does Paul really think he's getting that deposit back? Or do you just want to buy the thing and get insurance?
I think that Paul is probably a little weird about vessels, just because living on a boat, and there is a certain thing of like, I have to have a vehicle, therefore I have to believe that I can outsail this kind of thing.
Yep.
I don't think it's coming back unscratched, but I am genuinely confident that I am getting it back in one piece.
Okay, you're not raising the minimum.
I mean,
You're just gonna.
My mechanical repair is pretty good. I can't
Yeah, we are
put
a
an
crew of a
exploded
ship.
car back together, but I can
Cars are
probably
way
fix
easier
an
than
engine.
ships.
Yeah, she'll be right. Okay.
Yeah.
You have
Also, I do have welding. If something does, if a door comes off, I could probably put it back on. It'll be permanent, but it'll be on.
It'll buff right out.
Our stream has a good track record with cars. I
going
specifically
way further
remember
than they
a quote-
should. Yeah.
A quote from Dave during our playthrough of Cold Fire Within. I don't think you were meant to take a car this far.
There's a bathtub at the center of the earth.
Yeah.
I
Scenario
remember
just
that
falls
car.
apart, guys. You can't have a car.
The car, if I remember correctly, the car did make it with the bathtub.
Yeah, all the way to the middle.
Bathtub.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had a similar, very, very talented mechanic in the cast, and it was Pulp, and there was a lot of luck invested to keep that car.
I remember certain sections where we were just burning huge amounts of luck and time and effort just getting the car up
On the bathtub.
because we're not leaving this thing.
Yep. And it was all worth
times.
it. All right.
So this car is going to face a similar fate.
So
Go
very
down in
quickly,
history.
if I can have a very brief word with Joe, actually,
Sure.
I might say, because I'm not going to move on anything major about the Foggy Sea, because it's Gaspar's basically, it belongs to him. So I probably do a lot of sort of getting everything right to the point before I can execute a bunch of sales legally, and therefore I might say, hey, we need to leave the boat for a time. It's going to just be sitting here. I'm probably going to have to pay someone a token amount to take care of it and check on it, or maybe boat sit it.
Yeah.
And give him sort of the option to stay and live on it if he wants for a little bit.
I think unless directed otherwise, Joe probably just he probably bounces. There's a lot of heat around this whole situation now. he's not coming on the final trek. He was attached to his contract was with Green, and the ship, that's kind of faded. He definitely hopes you stop the end of the world, but he didn't like that monster that swam at him, and the captain immediately died. So I think there's probably like one last, like when you get in and you all like say goodbye, like just for like the day, but you can kind of tell from Joe, or he just says goodbye, but that you're not going to see him again. And when you return the next time, he has indeed vanished, possibly to Boston to find other work, and probably under a different name.
The way it is, I guess. Thank you, Joe, if that is your real name, which we know it isn't.
Okay. Any other preparations or whatnot? Okay.
I think.
What are we preparing for? Oh, preparations before going and meeting Michelle. Is the Order of the Stone somewhere like that? If we needed to stay there, they'd put us up. Like,
they've offered to. Yeah.
I think the only thing is it a case that Nancy hires a car from the university and Paul and Luce go in the truck that we're all planning to like go in to the ridge because Gaspar doesn't want to be in the same car as the rest of us? Like, are we going separately?
That'd be fine. You could do, and if we don't like it, we can leave. You could do that, Nancy, if you want to line up a car.
I'm not a great driver.
As long as we're not doing crazy driving, drive auto of 20 just means you can drive a car. I can drive a car, but
just flagging that one.
That'd be fun. Okay.
No reason.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just a little bit of like.
Well, I've had recent experience driving a car.
Yeah.
Hey, showing trust.
Into monsters.
What?
Well, look. Yes.
Okay. So Nancy can arrange through Bethnell a rental car it'll be for today, tomorrow, in case you stay out there, and you probably will stay out there. It's a bit of a ways out. And then driving up in the two different vehicles, you make your way outside of Arkham and then turn south towards Boston.
We're meeting. We're going to Boston first. Gotcha.
It's just the Order of the Stone is outside of Boston. It's actually to the north, so in the direction of Arkham, so it works out. But you're gonna have to drive there, or you can take the train or something. Doesn't matter. We're gonna drive.
And then we're gonna go from Boston to the ritual site.
Not necessarily.
No, that's weeks away. You're just meeting with Michelle, and she's gonna give you the lay of the land.
When we actually do all the stuff together, it's unlikely we will have two vehicles because that's.
Yeah. Paul's just taking this puppy for a spin. You drive out a ways, making your way south along one of the highways, and then turn off into what is sort of farming land. You'll find a stand of trees that, according to your directions, you ought to turn left at. You follow a tall white brick wall to a wrought iron fence and find a butler waiting there. It's not like super crazy posh. There is a butler though, so it's already hit a minimum.
We already spoke on the phone.
Yes, that's right. He didn't understand how phones worked.
He offered me a cup of tea.
And turning inside, this how he pointedly does it, which seems rude. Turning inside, you see there is a manor house and a couple of separate like workshop and stables. Looks as though they keep horses. As you approach, you'll see Michelle waiting on the veranda. There's also a couple of other older men, sitting up on rocking chairs on the higher level. Tobias is not here. He's in an asylum somewhere. Michelle comes down and greets you as you arrive. Says, welcome to the Boston chapter. It's a little more basic, but should suffice to get everything started. Thank you for coming through, and I don't believe we've met. And she'll hold out a hand to you, Nancy.
Nancy Lewis, psychology department, postgrad. Worked with Dr. Bethnell a little bit on some anthropology components to my my last paper. Assisting with some of the trauma relating to recent events.
Understood. Pleased to meet you.
Am I right that Nancy's got her head around some of the occult stuff as well that we've been looking into?
After a fashion. I think it's mostly a metaphor.
Yeah, she's incidentally come across a lot of it, and I think is not presently a believer.
I respect people's belief of it, and I do believe that if somebody tells me they've seen something, I believe that they have seen it, and not in like a hallucination way, but in like a manifesticope
Real
kind
to
of
them.
way.
Yeah.
You know, the same kind of like, using tarot cards to spark conversation and deeper thought.
Yeah.
Not that it tells the future.
That's what most of them. They were on the champagne.
I believe in it, and I believe you believe in it, but not like magic.
Yeah, they were on the champagne, which collapsed in a storm, which is pretty dramatic for one, and they saw a
Yeah.
bunch of bodies there. And then there was an incident with a burning house, burning bodies, an exploded car, and a captain shot from a gun. Like, there's plenty of stuff
It's
there
amazing
without
they're
the
not
supernatural.
all in an asylum.
Yeah, and they're working on it.
You're all doing very, very well, honestly.
Michelle says, you'll understand that everything discussed here is confidential. I'd hate for anything to appear in the Gazette or otherwise.
Of course.
With that in mind, then, we will extend the welcome.
Yes, my patient. I would never.
Understood. Well, we extend the welcome and secrecy of the Order of the Stone to you, as long as yourselves will vouch for her in Captain Green's stead.
Yep.
Very well, then.
Yep. She's across it. She's read all the things that I've read, and seems like Miskatonic University trades in secrets.
Certainly true enough. Well, we'll keep ours, but there's much to discuss. So if you'll follow me inside, we'd better get started. She leads you in and through a library towards a study at the back that she has sequestered and made private even from within the chapter. Looking around the walls, you can see it's an old boys club. There's not a skerrick of a woman in sight, for one, and there's a lot of posters, like photos on the walls of like people through generations that have been members of this. You can actually kind of track the transformation of it a little bit, how it started as a more esoteric like chapter of the order that came across from Ireland and found wealth and power in Arkham and kind of left behind those occult angles long ago and now only keeps them in symbolic gestures. Like there are in initiation photos, you can see they still carry the goblets and they wear the robes, but it's not to praise the guarding of the urns, it's to drink the wine and go to the party after. You also probably, just as you're going through, see a bit of like, hey, that's the mayor, and like there's, you can see where their finger, like you can see how like where the chapter gets around a little bit.
It's very Masons, that fashionable to be in for a lot of socialites, and like fairly removed from the either religious or labor union roots that it was built from.
Absolutely, and where they don't seem to have a ton of power around like docks and otherwise, you actually don't think there's a connection to the mafia. But definitely powerful. I just by like in saying manor and butler and things, it makes it sound really, really nice. And possibly to your characters this is still not like crazy bonkers. This is like, it's like upper middle, lower, higher. You know what I mean? They could get better, basically. And this is the only house they have in the States.
It's comfortable, it's not ostentatious.
Yeah, that's it. They also recently had 4 members of their chapter die in a hunting incident. So there's a little bit more of a bleak atmosphere around, and the older fellows that are upstairs. The men that Tobias took.
Incident?
No, that Tobias took. That
Sorry,
came
they're
with
telling
him.
their members it was a hunting incident?
They're choosing their battles. Not everyone needs to know, I think.
Yeah,
and
right.
as Michelle's come in, she's realised that actually a lot of these people can't fully be trusted with the whole truth. It breaks minds more than it creates helpful soldiers.
Interesting.
Look, you've got two different kinds of membership here, right? Like you've got your
social membership.
supportive memberships, your social memberships, and then you've got your real members who are probably not as wealthy and pay a little bit less, but they contribute in other ways.
Boy, howdy do they. Yeah, that's exactly right. So Michelle takes you through to this sequestered study, and inside you can see tomes and scrolls laid out. She's pilfered pretty much every practical occult book and mythos related item from the area and taken it here, and then locked the door behind her, which she does as the four of you come into the room. She'll say, I trust you have the third fragment that you've been studying, Gaspar. If you can place it here with the others, and we'll look at the problem in the entirety.
Oh, good. I can feel a sanity roll coming on.
Are you able to give it up, or is it you can look at it when I'm done with it?
Yeah, I'm on the record as saying I don't have any misgivings about Michelle yet.
So you can commit it to the rest.
All good. Yeah.
Placed alongside them, you can see that these pieces are indeed portions of a larger complete text, which documents the Order's initial battle with Agran Talon Soth that was incepted by their own summoning, how they found modern munitions, being slings and arrows, ineffective, and resorted to another spell known within the chapter whereby they conjured flames to banish the creature's physical form. Captured within wards, it was then bound into the 3 urns as 3 different pieces, buried and watched for all time, which of course unfortunately failed as the story faded into myth and was ultimately more or less forgotten as a real thing, thought just to be a metaphor. Agran Talon Soth, now revealed to be very much real and present here in Massachusetts. The whole thing has a different light to it. Michelle mentioned on the phone earlier when she spoke with you in Greyport that they are looking into a rebinding ritual to return it to the urns. And this is the principal subject for today. She'll say, we believe, the spell to reseal it. And it's tricky. Unsurprisingly, it's gonna take some doing. It's not just a single spell, so to say. There's a lot that goes into this, and the creature, it won't go in easily. What they're trying to do, Dr. Sebastian and the summoners, is break the final urn in when the moon rises again in only a few weeks' time, and they'll use what they believe to be ley lines running under the ridge to augment their own ability to help them to possibly direct control. We don't know. No one's been able to speak with Sebastian, and we haven't a true understanding of where his mind is at. With the third urn released, Agran Talon Soth will be whole once more, and truthfully, we don't know just what will happen. According to the old stories, the druids were able to capture it and destroy it, but it'd be a lot better if it doesn't get to that state. What we're proposing is we capture and rebind the existing portions, Agran Talon, which will have merged into one already, deposit that in new urns, which we intend to create, and then we prevent the third urn from being opened. We believe we know approximately where they are, being along the ridge. There's only so much land, but we can get out there and start looking. To basically capture the first 2, return them to the urns, and prevent the third from ever being opened, return them back to Dublin, bury them again, and watch them properly this time.
What about your you're in with one of the wives of a member. I know that it was. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah.
No,
exactly
that's
what happened at the house, and that person may no longer be in play. But
no, very much in play. We went and we've met with his wife. We have not met with Baker himself, but she's gotten another contact. They've actually taken his car, we believe. His wife, at least, believes that he does not wish to be involved, but he is continuing with them. Dr. Sebastian actually went through there briefly. She had a chance encounter with him. He seemed perfectly pleasant at the time, and she basically didn't even realize the extremes to which this has gone, but obviously unnerved by the champagne and the recent incident with Torres's death. asked her husband to return home, and he simply said he couldn't, but would as soon as he was able. Look, we're just going to have to consider it another piece on the field. It's reasonable that if we can find him and isolate him, he can be turned, or at least will leave. But all we've gotten through him is confirmation that they've headed for the ridge, and they've taken a car with them, which we have the information of. If we can get into the area, we could ask local law enforcement, perhaps if they've seen it. We can start to get some pulls out. In fact, we may have some contacts in that area, or contacts of contacts. We can speak with them and see if they can get that ball rolling. Before we continue too far, I want to know how Nancy is responding to all of this. I imagine the rest of the group is kind of moving around the scrolls, putting pieces together, getting maps out and talking, and getting into the practicals of the things. Nancy, how are you responding?
Oh, I just find it's very interesting that some of the earlier photos from Ireland definitely have women in them, back when this was indeed an occult society, before they turned it into a social club. And as soon as they got over here and got into some nice digs, it turns out the women have all been written out of this story,
Curious.
which is not the first time and won't be the last time that happens. You know, in the Victorian era, a lot of those early societies of literature, art, and turned into the occult when that became the fad, were all started by women who were pushed out when these things became popular and lucrative, rather. So
Yeah.
it happens with every society.
I mean, Michelle came
Occults
over
and
from
otherwise.
the Irish chapter and is clearly reasonably high ranking in it, and yet over here, well, she's being respected at least, but yeah, no others of her ilk. Yeah, so you're kind of focusing on more like the history of the chapter, and just keeping an eye on Gaspar, I imagine, and helping
He
him a
seems
little
to be
bit.
doing
through.
fine. I know that the Order of the Stone was not the focus of his paranoia, so I think it's actually probably good for him to be here and to be involved. There have been occult
This is
societies
new.
throughout history. This is nothing new.
This is his new support structure.
Yeah.
Which I wholly encourage.
Perfect.
For
It's not
now.
unusual for there to be occult societies, and everybody has to have hobbies.
Yeah. It's fun.
The president is the member of one, I think, at this time. It's all good.
Exactly. It's a very, very popular thing.
I
I myself have a set of cards and some runes that a friend brought back from overseas, and these things help people. They're helpful tools.
They can be fun. Yeah, Art, you wanted to say something?
I was just gonna Luce is not a particularly intellectual based person. They're obviously not stupid, because they're not. But and has a reasonable education, but is a more practical or anything. I just had a fun idea that Luce is obviously going to a nice place, and being in fishing attire makes no sense. So they've managed to get themselves a nice woolen suit with pants and a little waistcoat, and they haven't got the jacket because they've taken that off and hung it over a chair or something, but it's just crisp white shirt rolled up to elbows, a fitted waistcoat, sort of that what is that hunting brown checks, that really fine check, and I can't remember what it's. I think
Houndstooth is
Houndstooth
actually
is a little
something
different,
but yeah.
Yeah, but just that real quintessential greeny brown fine checked woolen pants, and then some comfortable shoes. The axe is in the car. And they are for the first time not wearing a tool belt, and they're relatively put together, and so it's just a slightly different version of Luce, who still has the same expression on their face of what's broken and how do I fix it, and is paying attention to whenever Michelle talks about what needs to be done, but as soon as it becomes more about any kind of philosophical more level, Luce just kind of wanders over to one of the bookshelves and just starts perusing titles, and is trying to find how many of them are in how many of them are in English, how many of them are in, I suspect Luce probably has some is it Scots Gaelic? Is it still Gaelic in?
I'm not sure. Definitely, it's Gaelic is what they're speaking and written in.
Yes, but there's Gaelic in Ireland, and then there's whatever is in Scotland, and I feel like that's also
think they
Gaelic.
call it
There is a
Gaelic.
there is
I
a
think they call it-
Gaelic language called Scots Gaelic.
Right.
They call
so
it Gaelic in Scotland, and they call it Irish in Ireland, I think.
Gotcha.
But they're different languages, sorry.
yeah,
the
yeah.
Celtic
So
languages
like,
of those
he's specifically
places.
looking for like. Luce has a rudimentary understanding of Scots Gaelic and a good understanding of English, and it's
Yeah.
just like perusing titles
A
to be
bit
like, how
goes
many of
across.
these are in weird languages? Again, just for like practical. Possibly also starts just like at one point having a look at the nearest lamp to be like, how's this work?
For what's it is similar to how they have like turned it into a boys' club. They've stepped a long way away from the like Irish Gaelic, like as most of it's English translated. They have a couple, but they look dustier and as if they're not being read a whole lot. Truth be told, even Michelle's like, English is certainly stronger.
It might be one of those things where they actually have ended up with more like Latin or French occult books just because they're occulty and
And they're the
fashionable,
trendy
rather,
ones.
Yeah. I think that's probably like Luce has just pulled a book idly off the shelf and has opened it and is flicking through it like while listening to the conversation, but is being a little bit separate because they're not as much about the spells or the anything like that. It's just like listening into the practical stuff. If a map gets brought out, maybe, but even then, Paul's the one who's better at the navigation side of things.
Yeah.
I'm just good at machines and hitting things with axes.
So yeah,
Oh,
Jimbo.
sorry, just if I this might be what we're about to talk about. Just on the practicality point of view, if I can just ask very quickly, our minimum viable outcome here is to stop them from breaking that last urn if we can. Even if we can't, rebind everything, or that's something we have to work out later. If we can stop them from getting that last urn smashed at the right time, we can potentially at least not everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
That's correct. If the third urn is opened and Agran Talon Soth in its entirety is brought to bear in the physical world, we don't know what will happen. Likely it shan't be good. Agran Talon has already grown in power. We estimate tenfold or so. Like the sums are
What's
far
it done?
greater than the parts. We have little to go on. We only have the texts and things. There's been no sighting of the creature. We only have my experiences on the champagne and your own, but the two parts will be whole now. How it was transported, we don't know. Well, actually, that comes together. I'll divide the... Listen, Captain Green, I held in high esteem. And you, as a crew, have my esteem as well. I don't want to give commands here. I want to give the stakes as I see it, the tools that we have as I understand them, and open this up to options. You are equals in this as far as I'm concerned, and how we go about this, you'll be on the field as much as I. Truth be told, you'll probably be more practical on the field than I will. So...
Are you aware of how ships work?
Yeah, I mean, I sailed a bit when I was younger.
How they're crewed, how a ship works.
I believe so, yes.
Because the captain, right? The captain isn't more or less important than anyone else on the ship. We all have different roles. The captain cannot captain a ship without someone who understands engines, without someone who understands the rigging, without someone who is able to do things. A captain can't do anything on their own. And the crew knows that. The captain is the head, gives the orders, because the captain is able to see everything and has the most understanding of what's going on, but you still need individual people to do what they do best. You know what's going on. So if you've got orders, if you've got things that you can see that you're like, this is what needs to be done, that doesn't make you not our equal. It makes you the captain of whatever this is. You still need us. But it's okay if you want to tell us what to do. We'll turn around and tell you we're not going to do it if we don't want to. We did that with the captain. But the point is that if we're all going to work together, it's not about us saying yay or nay to your plan. We don't know shite. If you know something, tell us what to do. We're very good at doing it.
all to say we appreciate it, but yeah, go wild. What's the best way to do this?
Okay, understood. Well then, let's game it out. The summoners have headed to the ridge with the intention to open the third urn. That must be
Do you
stopped.
know how many?
We do not. At least 3, based on the survivors. It feels unlikely that Dr. Sebastian has brought in more. By my understanding, and Miss Lewis, you may be able to expand on this, we think we would believe that he would be unlikely to open this up to more people. Seems to risk bringing them into the fold. Does that bear fruit?
Feels like if he was in a desperate enough situation to go and take the cars of one of his members, I mean, cars only fit so many people, right? Like, I feel like if they were, I think it's probably safe to say they have as many seats as a family sedan has at this point.
Yeah.
Well,
Actually,
didn't everybody in the last party die?
they did. Only 2 more of his colleagues are still alive. Mickey
There's 3
Spill and Terrence Baker.
There's 3 in total, including Sebastian.
We believe
Right.
that's all.
Stands
But
to reason.
that's not necessarily the only people present. You saw one of the monstrosity's abilities in Greyport, raising the dead, turning them to its cause. It could be that they've swollen their ranks with undead abominations, standing in for rank-and-file soldiers. Dr. Sebastian, if he still has control, or at least an allegiance with Agran Talon, will not be able to command them. That is its charge, we believe. But as long as he's intending to open the urn, I think that the creature will, well, it will allow him to do so. I see no reason why it would turn against them. It's possible that Terrence Baker, as we mentioned, is not quite so in line, but we unfortunately don't have a ton to go on. So a number of them have headed towards the ridge. We know they have 2 vehicles at least. There was the truck that Tobias mentioned he saw marks of at the house before they left, so they had a heavier vehicle, and then also the smaller car, which was retrieved from Terrence Baker's. The opening of the third urn is the primary objective. That absolutely cannot happen. The rest is secondary, but not necessarily far less important. The ley lines are under the ridge will aid their abilities. Truthfully, it seems as though they will expand most any esoteric spells or powers to that effect. Your own castings, Gaspar, would be augmented there. That's why they've sought it out, so that they can, as a small group, do something that should require far more of them. Whether that is just the opening or something more, we just don't know at this time. So, that is the urn. That is mostly a material matter. You need to, you or whoever ultimately pursues this, need to stop it being opened and prevent those that can open it from doing so. Retrieve the urn, we'll return it back to Dublin and store it. That leaves the matter of Agran Talon. This can be either dealt with before the third urn is opened, before the third urn is in our possession, or after. It will likely be far easier to do it before, because Agran Talon is a portion of the whole. It wishes to be together, and will do anything in its power to stop you retrieving the third urn. If it can be captured and returned to its own chambers first, that will leave only the summoners themselves and whatever minor minions that may exist. Potentially they fade as well, but we don't know.
And does this mean that if we can successfully rebind one of the original 2, then even if the third one escapes, it's not a disaster anymore? As long as all 3 aren't open and released at the same time, that's the critical
It's
mess.
a disaster on the scale of the SS Champagne. So,
Yes, I'm sorry.
but
Essentially,
yes,
we're
it keeps
still
our
on a
reality
clock.
intact.
We're still on the clock, as it were, if we stopping them from opening the third urn gives us another 30 days if we can't actually get it off them. If we
Yes.
can get it off them, well then that gives us a lot more time to sort out the others. If we can't get the urn off them, when we can't stop them doing the ritual, if we manage to get at least one of the others back, then again we've got another timer of 30 days or however long until they try and come and get the urn that we've got. Best
Sounds
case scenario, we stop it all at once. Worst case scenario, the world continues to be moderately shite, but we have a timeline, a longer timeline of going entirely to shite if we manage to get any one of these things done before. One of these things done successfully. I'm not going to say before the other. It's just if we succeed in one, we've got time. Hopefully.
Sounds like the best path forward is absolutely to try and rebind one of these things quickly. I mean, we shouldn't go into the ridge. If disaster happens and we are unable to continue afterwards, they'll just wait 30 days and succeed. But if we can put things in motion so that we don't have to risk all our eggs at a certain time, we want to be able to retreat.
Is there any chance we could find the first two before?
You may not need
before the ritual site.
You may not need to. I'll outline the process as it was done long ago. So, a ward needs to be created. I need to begin earlier. Agran Talon Sasoth, created from 3 parts into a whole, was released or was summoned into our reality. The druids were unable to hurt it until they brought it down with fire. This removes the physical form, but as you saw on the SS Champagne, does not destroy it forever. It can recombine itself eventually, and it can return. What is needed is a ward around it to capture what is beyond physical in space, and then a final spell to be cast to bring it down in 3 parts into the prepared urns, which are marked and sealed so that it can be held in place. Once done, it is captured, can be reburied, and should not harm anyone else. So understand, that's already 3 spells being cast. The ward, the burning, and the final binding, the capturing in the urns. Prior to that, the urns need to be prepared. There are words spoken over them and runes carved, but no actual spells themselves, so they can be done in advance. And there is another option here. As it stands, you would need to lure Agran Talon into the ward and destroy it with fire. The flames of the ancients, or other means, such as how you prepared the boiler to blow on the SS Champagne. It doesn't need to be through these methods, that's just what was found to be effective. Then it's captured in the urns. An alternative presents itself in the 3rd fragment, which, Gaspar, you've had an opportunity to read over. The druids summoned Agran Talon Sasoth, and this mighty and unforgivable spell doesn't just draw it from the endless void from where it originally appeared, it moves it on Earth as well. If cast, it would bring Agran Talon to the summoner. It would bring it into a ward already placed. We don't need to go to the ridge to get Agran Talon. We can bring it wherever we want. But it's another spell to cast, and this is likely why they've traveled to the ley lines. Sebastian, we believe, is the only person casting spells. Actually, we don't know. There's definitely been sacrifices made of other party members and such, but we don't think they're actually studying it in any great degree. So if he's doing this all by himself, he would need the ley lines to reduce the strain on his mind and body. But with a larger group, it's possible that could be cast anywhere. Of course, if it fails, that's bringing the monster to wherever we are, and if we perish, there's no opportunity to go and prevent the final urn from being opened. So it's just a matter of strategies. we have here the 3 fragments available for you to study. Contained within them, maybe yet more secrets. Also contained within them are the spells as they need to be studied. We can point you towards the relevant sections. Anyone can try to learn the spells without studying the scrolls and taking those extra sanity hits. However, you won't gain the Cthulhu mythos from reading them, and you still have the sanity requirements of casting the spells themselves. So basically, they point you towards 4 spells. Ward against Agran Talon Soth, Flame of the Ancients, the Binding of Agran Talon Soth, and Summon Agran Talon Soth. She gives a caveat for the 4th and final one. She will only teach you this or point you towards it if you join the Order of the Stone. She wants to keep this within ranks because this is what can actually bring it to bear.
I have a question just on the base. Less a question, more a suggestion. If we manage to get to the bridge before, or even around the same time, but ideally before Sebastian's little party's meant to happen, and do everything we're planning to do, potentially still summon the beastie to us if it's not already around, and we have the benefit of these ley lines as well as the jump, so to speak. Is that worth considering? Obviously
Absolutely.
we're kind of going to the ridge because we think Agran Soth will be there, but if it's not there when we get there, then we're going to do a bunch of magic anyway. We may as well have a bunch of magic power lines to,
Certainly.
give us a kick up the arse.
Absolutely. It's just going there and finding out what they have prepared. And we'll be in an environment we're not familiar with. Whereas if we do it here, we can be prepared as possible. We have the order at our call. We can prepare space here to cast the spells. And otherwise,
Got any ley lines lying around?
Unfortunately not. This will need to be done the
Would have
old-fashioned way. Unfortunately,
I would have
if
thought
only
that
we were home,
esoteric-
there'd be a chance.
that's what I was about to say. It's a bit weird that an esoteric society didn't build their headquarters on top of ley lines, but I assume your original HQ does.
Truth be told, I never looked into it too closely before this all became a reality, but it stands to reason they may have.
It's actually very rare for cities and major hubs to be built on ley lines. Typically, those are in wilder places, and there's just not a lot of major built-up areas in what is traditionally considered ley lines. They belong to the wilder places, and whether there's many cultures believe that it's the ley lines are repelling civilization.
If you know,
but also they're often in
something
pretty inaccessible areas.
If you know something about them, do you think?
Except in England.
Do you think you could find other ones
I blame the Romans for that.
that the summoners don't know about?
Unlikely that there's ones they don't know about. It's fairly well documented.
It's
At
not
least ones that would surprise them.
It's not totally out of the question, and it's not something I had at least considered. If Miss Lewis wants to do some research and find an alternative, one may be found.
If there's another
Dr.
set
Sebastian,
of ley lines nearby that we can, get the order to in not much, kind of set up our own little ritual site away.
I don't know how
Dr. Sebastian-
ley lines work, but if there's ocean-based ones as well, that would get us nice and away from people in case things go wrong.
That's true. We do
And
have still have
potentially they don't have access to a boat if they're borrowing cars.
Although I suspect getting a whole bunch of a boat's all right for a size. We could get a fair number of people on if we really tried.
we
You do a good job.
it's certainly something to consider. Dr. Sebastian didn't have access to a great number of books. We don't even know how he found the ridge. Whereas we, unpursued by law and investigators, have access to the Orn Library and wherever else we wish to read. Before we begin this, the urns need to be prepared. We need to create at least 2. Ms. McAllister, I thought this might be something under your purview. The first were created with clay we see no reason not to move them with the times. Perhaps a more sturdy option is in order.
All right. Yeah, I can probably do that. I mean, I probably need someone to tell me what runes need to be on there and what kind of, chanting needs to happen. But if you give me the rough sounds of it, I might not be able to speak Irish Gaelic, but I can probably make the right sounds at the right time, as long as I don't need to fully understand the... Oh, all right. Well, between the two of us.
To a degree.
Miss Lewis, I can provide you with a document of the runes to be crafted, and if you're familiar with them, you'll be able to read them and make sure that they are done correctly. Yeah, that can be done. This one isn't actually a spell, so there should be no requirement on your mind.
If you're just giving me a bunch of schematics, even better.
It's got a spec diagram. It's great.
Hell yeah. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Put me in front of a large chunk of iron and let me make some iron urns.
Is there a possibility that the apparition left on the champagne is still bound in the rune circle we created for it?
The
no.
circle would have exploded when the boat exploded.
We also think, well, truth told, I don't know if it can last. I mean, functionally, it's kind of the same runes that are done on the urns. Stands to reason that possibly if it hadn't been exploded, it may have, but yeah, we don't know.
It was also drawn in like...
Oh, sorry, no, it definitely isn't still there. We believe it was combined with Agran Talon, but it's possible. I mean, there's no end state on it, but leaving a monstrosity to reform inside a ward and just placing it somewhere, we'd like them back in the end, really.
Also, I mean, if we make it out of the right kind of metal, you drop those far enough away in the middle of the ocean, they're not coming back. We get to the right part of the ocean and drop them off, they're going down to places that'll crush a man within seconds of getting even close. Those
Crush the urn, hopefully.
If they're made properly, so here's the fun thing about like shapes and if you make it in the right kind of shape, the pressure will be placed on the vessel equally, and although it will be compressed, because of its shape, spoilers, circular, it can withstand a much higher pressure than it would otherwise. So we find, not saying that we don't bury them under the sand, but if you really want to make sure that they ain't gonna come back up again, we go somewhere. I don't know if in the 1920s anyone knew about the Marianas Trench, but I'm pretty sure the first time that a person went down there was James Cameron, very recently. So at least insofar as like, yeah, from Avatar.
James Cameron, the Mariana Trench. He loves the Titanic.
Really
into submarines.
Yep.
Really into the sea.
Submariner.
Good for him.
He funded the first submersible that went down into the Marianas Trench. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if he was in it. I feel like he actually might have been the first person. Yeah. He is officially the first person who went down, like, is it 14,000 kilometers? I think that's how deep it is. That's the bottom of the Marianas Trench. Yeah, James Cameron, big fan of the ocean.
There you go.
Really likes water.
They found it in the 19th century, and they sounded it by dropping a big old like a thing at the end of a rope to get it, like the old-fashioned kind of way.
Oh yeah, they're finding the Marianas Trench. Oh, in the 19th century. So like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So starting with an 18, yeah.
Right, yeah. So we know that it's there, but no one has managed to create a vessel that allows them to go down that far yet. So the idea of dropping something heavy enough that is able to withstand the pressure down
and
into
who knows what that awakens. We'll deal with that tomorrow.
That's fine.
It's another campaign.
I mean, look, Luce understands the ocean. That's their pitch. Put them in heavy things and drop them in the ocean.
At any rate, we can figure out exactly how we want to store these things. I do think there is something to be said for perhaps one being hidden somewhere natural, just to protect against something like organizational decay, which we've seen occur once. But moving on from that for the time being.
So we have some time. If we depart within 2 weeks, we then still have a full week before the summoning. That should give us time to intercept the summoners and prevent it, regardless of where we are, pretty much as long as we're in the nearby area. So we have 2 weeks to assign tasks. Studying any of these scrolls and drawing more insight into the mythos takes about a week. Learning the spells is quicker. But basically, what does everyone want to do? And we'll kind of, unless there's any particular questions, we can kind of zoom out from here and take the tasks as they come.
I think this is going to be interesting because we spoke about this before the session, but if Gaspar has been avoiding everyone, it might be a little bit more difficult, and I might have to get Nancy's help on this one, which is in the downtime. Luce was going to. Luce has a couple of tattoos. Mm-hmm. They are a sailor, but Luce was going to get another tattoo. Specifically, was going to get a tattoo of the Agaran Talon Sathoth ward.
Yep.
Somewhere on their person. But that would require Gaspar to assist with the casting of that.
Yeah, it would, which would require you to ask him to assist with casting.
Which is essentially, at this point, now that we're sort of at the pointy end, I think before, as we are assigning tasks, and Luce will say, well, I'm on errand duty, obviously, we'll kind of sidle up to Gaspar and Nancy, walk up while we're still at the order and go, all right, Gaspar?
Yep.
Your grandmother was an amazing person. And,
don't need to tell me that.
No, I know I don't. I think what I do need to tell you is I think you might be just like her. So, you decide the foggy sea is something you want to hold on to? You want someone to look after the old girl?
You and Paul
whether
can
you're
have
on or not? Sorry, what was
it. I
that?
don't care. You and Paul can have it. I don't care.
Well, I'm happy to look after her. If you change your mind, she's still yours. But I'll take good care of the girl if you need some time to think. Entirely up to you. It's your ship now. But on another matter, related to the ship, but more related to your talents, is our magic user. You did a mighty fine job on those wards for the boat and on those wards for the car. I was wondering, would you mind helping ward this old girl? Because I can't do it without you. I mean, I can make it pretty simple, but it ain't gonna do shite. You're the one who can make magic happen.
I think we should all get it done. It's a good idea.
You comfortable with me organising it, or I just know a couple of good, I know what to look for in artists, but
Sure.
you're not happy with the choice, you can tell me, but I'll go find a couple of options.
Doesn't do any harm, as far as we know, and it even has some effect on some of the shamblers. So it's good. Should be. Yep.
All right.
Whatever.
Well,
I mean, if you want to, yeah.
All right. I'll organize. I'll find someone to do the actual artwork. And anyone who wants to get it done can get it done. But if you don't mind doing.
Same for Melissa and anyone else in here who wants it. Now, I get 1 magic point back per hour.
Yep.
So if
Just
I
the
don't,
sanity that's
So over the
gonna be
course of a week.
Yeah.
so if I
There's,
don't
there's
sleep,
no sanity. There's no
There's no
sanity.
sanity hit for
Now
this
that
one
he knows I cast
actually.
it.
This one's understood. You can just pump that.
so yeah, in a week I could cast it. It costs. I've got 8. Heck, it costs 4 magic points, so I can cast it 6 times a day, right?
Yeah.
That tracks.
I mean, even just hitting
Plus I
the.
start with 8, so I get another 2. And as we all know, 6 times 7 is
Something.
wow. My brain.
Essentially,
broke.
you can
42,
you do
is
it a couple
I
of
think
times
it's
a
42.
day. I think we can get
Couple times a day.
all of us
The-
plus
the bigger
Michelle.
issue is-
No, well, I'm wondering how many members of the Order of Stone
Yeah.
there are, because
Start-
I can
start tattooing
sort out
people.
44 magic tattoos this week. I got openings.
The biggest thing is
We
going to
do
be getting
need
an
someone to
artist
maybe learn the
to
spells.
do the tattoo. That's going to
That's
generate
gonna
the title
take-
because that's and getting it accurate enough to the specifics.
Getting it exactly right.
Yeah, so it's going to be getting the template done and everything. So that's finding someone to do that is going to be the hardest part of this. But apart from that, yeah, once you get that, Gaspar can just go along, and go activate, and just get them all going.
You can fit so many spell tattoos in this order.
Slap.
Slaps top.
We're ready.
I will focus on making the urns, but I will also in the downtime between doing that, will look for a decent tattoo artist in Arkham. I'm gonna argue that because I have got tattoos and I have looked for things, I can at least find someone who is capable of doing something.
It's going to be a
not
credit
really
rating
good.
roll, unless there is a more appropriate one. It's finding someone and securing them for the contract.
Education.
I
think,
mean,
This
the
is
thing
like
with
firing.
credit
It's
rating
like
is,
basically hiring someone to do a job. It's pretty credit
Yeah,
rating.
no, you're right.
Yeah.
The only
And it's
issue
a
is that
weird
we
job with a lot of
haven't
requirements and blah blah.
We haven't done any advancements on credit rating, even though we got extra money. So my credit rating is just whatever it was at the start.
Like, you guys
But
just
I'm
aren't
happy
su-
to,
you guys just aren't
At the end
super
of the
wealthy.
Last one, just if
Yeah.
you didn't do it, because I got 10 points on the advancement roll for it, which is wild.
Yeah, so you can
Sounds like Paul should be looking for the tattoo.
I mean, I haven't done any advancement rolls because I don't know what.
just roll the credit rating. It's the same as the others, and if you roll over it, you get a D10. You guys have been doing your job for the last 2, so you can have that.
Oh, that's so
Unless I'm allowed to do it
Dang.
twice because we've done 2 sessions, but I don't.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's
Alright.
right. Try again. Gaspar.
I don't remember doing it either.
Yeah, and then so you can have one
I did
D10
it
to
both
it.
times. I didn't get any on the first. I got one.
But this is kind of
No.
this is finding this is knowing people and blah blah blah. It's also not just it's getting a very specific requirement, and then you need to bring them in and employ them. And
I mean,
blah, blah, blah.
bless. If I just rolled it to see if
Yeah,
I
that
could
would've
find
done
someone,
it.
I would have
I
succeeded.
would have done it for sure.
Which is very funny.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
All right. I guess do
We
you
can
want me
have
to
some-
roll to see if I can find someone?
no,
Or,
we'll assign tasks. I'll see what everyone wants
Okay,
to do
cool.
because it's
Cool,
going to
cool,
take time. So
I kind of want to see if I've improved my credit rating.
yeah, go for it.
Today.
Oh, wow.
Maybe owed some improvement.
You probably get some from your inheritance as well.
I mean,
money-
we do
money
still have
alone.
the
I think
$200 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think that would be if Paul. We could do a thing like Paul speed runs the inheritance through. There's also less money. It's also knowing people.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I also think it's funny that Paul took care of doing all of the sort of logistic stuff, and his credit rating bumped quite a bit. And I think that's probably totally legitimate. It's
Yeah.
because he probably had a bunch of he's actually doing it right, but it could look a bit suspicious from the outside.
Turns out
if he
you're
was paranoid and wanted to dislike.
Dave, I'd like to take those 2 credit rating improvement rolls
for it.
I am owed at this
for it.
time.
Have a whirl.
Excellent. And a hop. Not
Okay.
bad.
21.
We get in there.
And here's the 21. Nice.
Oh.
And
Now we're flying.
Here's the 10. Well,
Oh,
now.
so total
An even
I mean, that
30.
makes sense.
30.
Gaspar has got a little bit of extra assets, and
Little
Luce
cash
did
to
say sent all of the money home to mum, so makes
sure.
sense that they're not that much more flush.
All right. How do we want
Perhaps
to?
I will find the tattoo artist.
How do?
30, because then I can vet them. I can look at their portfolio
Yeah.
and make sure that they're up to accuracy.
Genuinely.
And I think it
The
depends
magic.
on. Depends on
Oh
who's
no,
got
we'll
what.
probably need I mean, this is the kind of thing. It's pretty important. Might need a double up and an assist.
Yeah. So
I know people in the area.
I've got the same credit rating as you, I'm happy to provide a bonus die.
I think you guys should think about how you want to assign things, because
we have magic learning, we have urns, we have researching ley lines, we have getting tattoos. Like, there's lots of things that we need to do, and I don't like.
Yeah,
if we double up, we're essentially stopping.
I also rechecked them.
Mm-hmm.
You unfortunately, you will need to at least read the scrolls to get the spells. So anyone doing that's going to need to do the skim at least. So Jackson has skimmed the fragment and the second fragment. So Jackson, if you want to learn the Flame of the Ancient spell, you can start working on that one. The third fragment is unread.
Yes.
So that's the...
You did say that Michelle could point us at the spells without
I reviewed the rules. You're going to have to at least read it and take that hit. Yeah, you have to skim it. So that's just getting the general sense of it. You could do the deeper dive study and glean more mythos information, but yeah.
And I'm indefinite, so I'm going to go into a bout, so I shall have to seclude myself.
Or if Nancy assists, she can roll, because psychoanalysis can break you out of a bout. So if she's with you, she can try to remove it once you go in.
I was going to say as well that, I mean, I think that I defer to you on this, Gaspar, because you are the wizard, but just because you were sort of out of reach for a bit, Paul is probably starting to be a bit like, I should read these. Just so that we have the information, kind of. If Gaspar pushes against anyone else doing study of the tomes, I don't think he would press the issue.
I would push against that.
Okay.
I feel like the only person
it's-
Gaspar might trust to look at them is Nancy.
Yeah.
Because it's just you two. It's just you two around every time the bout of paranoia
Things go
came
really
on.
wrong.
Yeah.
Let's say, Paul, it would be pretty easily circumvented is the only thing. Like, Michelle is offering them to you, and they are housed at the Order's properties.
Paul's such a nice guy.
I think he's still just sort of wants to respect the wishes of Gaspar more than anything.
Yeah.
To maybe feed it in. Perhaps when there's a downtime moment, he has a chat with you about funeral arrangements, and if you appear particularly weird about that, he goes, maybe I should just read the stuff, but we'll port to that in a second.
Well, so we're drawing towards the end of when we normally wrap these sessions, and what I'd like to do is kind of get through some of the just meat and potato roles here, so that we can either pick up with possibly attempting the summoning next week, or heading across to the ridge, or wherever we want to go. So if we kind of break it out into weeks, what is the task that everyone wants to focus on for this first one? And I actually do think that planning and doing the funeral isn't a bad idea, and could possibly restore some sanity, particularly to Gaspar and stuff, because it is basically getting a chance to. Yeah, I think so. It's kind of like the interacting with a prized whatever the hell. Important.
Yeah, you're
significant person.
Yeah. Bernie was my significant person, and spending time with significant person restores sanity. So
I think that would absolutely feature. The way we're going to do this is you can each do a task. If you're going to add a second one on, smaller things like organizing the funeral or searching for a tattoo artist, you're just going to apply a penalty dice to the things that you're attempting. Otherwise, focus on tasks that require a week. So constructing the urns, looking into alternate ley lines, studying any of the tomes, things like that. The first reading of tomes and learning the spells is just going to add a penalty dice unless you do the deeper reading. So anyone else can kind of just tack that onto what they're already doing and take a little hit as they go about. Does anyone kind of know what they want to do, so we can get a bit of a foundation? And then we won't do rolls, we'll get what everyone's doing first, so that if something gets left behind, someone else can pick it up. So Luce, you can do the urns?
Yeah, we need those to make any other decisions. So that is fully the tattoo is a thing that Luce wants to get for many reasons, but it can wait a week until the urns are done. Okay. That is the most important thing to Luce at this moment.
So urns for Luce, and currently nothing else. You can do it just from the schematics. If someone like Nancy assists you, you'll get a bonus dice on that craft welding check. Gaspar, do you know what you want to be working on?
If we're dedicating ourselves solely to one thing, do we have the ability to assist someone else?
We're gonna quickly get into I give them a bonus dice, but I get a penalty dice on my own one, and then we get in a circle. And I remember being in one of these before, and I don't know how we got out of it. So we're just not gonna do that.
Mostly just because we were talking about Nancy helping with some of the runes.
I'm just gonna be assisting. I'm not gonna be dedicating myself to one thing. It'll be assisting Gaspar to read in that when he goes nutso, I'm going to try and pull him out of it with psychoanalysis. I feel like instead of dedicating myself to one main role, if I'm
that works
assisting with others, like I can do a couple of...
I would
get Michelle to help with then the runes and the chanting over the urns kind of thing. Like, is that because I'm happy to do it if that's all part of it. I just don't know whether we need someone else to do the like.
It's going to be kind of with you. She's kind of like just kind of running the op, doing that kind of stuff. She does know some of the spells. I'll kind of park her in that capacity. Nancy, the only other thing that would be considered for you is if you want to look into the ley lines or anything else. The ridge itself can be researched as well if you want to just Google that. So yeah, but that would be
Google
an action.
It with the Orn Library.
That would be an action rather than
Hornet.
I think the main thing is sticking with Gaspar and making sure that he can learn these spells and pulling him out of any bouts that he may happen to find himself in, or almost certainly will.
So what if this works for you, Nancy? I'd say you can assist Luce, so they will get a bonus dice on the welding roll. With Gaspar, if he goes into a bout, it's going to be a psychoanalysis roll on your behalf to try and snap him out of it. You are going to have a penalty dice on that because you're a bit distracted with Luce helping. You're kind of whether you're there at the exact right time, if that suits. So it may not even come up.
Stick with Gaspar.
Okay. All right. So you're going to park with Gaspar and stand by, so you can assist him with rolls that he makes if it's relevant, and also be there for the psychoanalysis if it comes up. But then you're basically locked on to him.
Yep.
Gaspar, then I guess, what do you want to be looking into? What do you want to work on?
Yeah, I think I got to try to learn some more spells as slowly and carefully as possible.
Okay.
But I think they must be learned.
So, the Flame of the Ancients, you've already read that scroll. You did the quick look through, and you already took that hit in the last chapter. So you can work on that, and you can have it learned but not mastered. You haven't cast it yet, so you'll still have that first roll when you do it. I will add that.
But even if I fail that roll, the spell still goes off, but I have a bad time.
If you ever attempt it again, it is a pushed roll.
That's right.
So yeah, that's right. And in that case, yeah, it does go off, but you also get like other hits and things.
So like week 1, commit them to memory. Week 2, practice.
If you want to cast them, you want to practice summoning Agran Talon Soth, go for it.
Maybe I was talking more about the fire.
The flame you could do if we take him out to the woods and have him.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. The second fragment, studying that is going to have a sanity hit. You can do that during the same week too. So do you want to?
Oh, really? Yep. If I can do them both at once, that makes sense.
Yeah, the flame you already have read
Nancy.
That one. Okay.
Yeah, where do we do it? Because I still inclined to be at least somewhat
I guess, like, yeah, if you kind of, like, how aware of it are you that, like, you're going to be in danger? Like, how do you guys handle this? Especially because Nancy isn't fully in the believer, you know?
That's true. I've got to ask Nancy first. Real talk. All of this is real, but it matters whether you believe it's real or not. Because if you don't believe it's real, that puts us in danger right now.
Well, reality is entirely subjective, isn't it? So
no, it's not though. No, there's real monsters and there's real magic. It's not subjective. It killed my grandmother and it broke my brain, and it's we got to take this seriously.
Did she not get shot though?
Extenuating circumstances.
Of course. I believe reality is subjective.
You muted, I think, Jackson.
Oh, so yeah, come on. Everything you've seen so far. I mean, you know,
you're asking me to believe
a tree is made of wood. That's not subjective. I'm asking if you believe this in the same level as that.
Well, of course I don't. That is not my reality at this point. However, I am open to having my reality adjusted, as I have many times in the past. When I was a child, I believed in Santa Claus. My reality has since been adjusted. And I'm, as a scientifically minded individual, I am open to having my reality adjusted again in future.
She's so sensible.
You're asking me to... ascribe a physical dimension to something that I have never seen, heard, touched, felt. And I don't think that's an entirely fair ask. I am here with you, and I'm at your side, and I am open to having my own perception of reality adjusted.
I guess I'm just saying that this particular adjustment causes problems for a lot of people.
Well, it's a good thing I'm rather well equipped to deal with those specific problems, isn't it?
Okay. Good. Nancy's used a lot of $10 words that has convinced me that she probably knows what she's doing.
Gaspar, the other option you could do, Nancy's kind of said that if she sees evidence, she can be persuaded. You could do just this week, you could do the Flame of the Ancients casting. You could go with Nancy, show her proof that this is a real thing. If you conjure fire, she's likely to be fairly convinced, and that would be witnessing a mythos thing. So, you guys could do that.
That is the spell I should start with, because that's the slightly safer one for me. Somehow, the conjuring fire one is safer for me than learning a new one, which is,
The downside is if we show Nancy that the world is not as she imagined and her brain goes off the deep end, it's going to be slightly harder for her to stop your brain from going off the deep end.
But if her brain's going off the deep
Unlikely.
end, then anyone's brain is going off the deep end.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm just saying, making someone believe in a thing is not necessarily good for them to be your support mechanism going forwards. But that is not a statement of like Gaspar shouldn't do it. I'm just being like, hey, that's a funny thing to do.
Saving the world from an ancient Irish demon is a funny thing to do. That's what we're doing.
What do you guys work on?
I like that. Let's go somewhere. Are we all staying in Boston? Are we going back to Arkham?
We're doing it in sort of week. You're welcome to base out of the Order of the Stones house. You can head back to Arkham. You can move. You can go back to Boston for the intervening. It's wherever you want, wherever you're best suited. They're all within like a half day's drive, so it's kind of nothing.
Yeah, gotcha.
In the week.
I'm gonna assume that it's gonna be that if the Order of the Stone have a workshop that I can focus doing stuff in, I will remain at the Order of the Stone in order to focus on making those urns. If they don't have a workshop and I need to go elsewhere, I will be wherever that is, but I don't.
I like going out of the woods. If Nancy's okay with that.
I assume they have a fairly large kitchen here. It's usually a good spot to do things with. What did you say, fire?
Yeah, I think like a lot of fire that could burn a whole house down, and there's a chance I'm not really myself when I do it.
Are there any leaks around? Firing it over a large body of water is probably the safest option.
Yeah, there's the river that goes through. There'll be a point where it creates a small dam or lake or something. You can do that. You go out late at night.
The lake.
The awkward thing about Arkham is when you get to the lake, there's going to be another witch or wizard doing the same thing.
You
gotta book ahead.
No walk-ins. Do you have a reservation? Move along. Yeah, do you want to find a lake or something?
Yeah, I think that's the best plan I got right now. And saying it out loud, putting it all together, it doesn't sound like a great plan at all. But it's what I've got.
I think it sounds like a great plan. I'm on board. Okay. So
this
is anyone else?
Does the fire? Because I think we went through this. Maybe we actually. Never mind. I don't know, and we don't know, so ignore.
Okay.
We saw it burn down a house. It could burn
No,
down
I
a
was
house.
more like, I know that
too.
the first casting of a thing takes a sanity hit. There are some spells that it doesn't matter whether you've mastered it. You take a sanity hit when you cast it. That was some of the spells that Seb had.
This is not one such spell. This has no sanity requirement along with
Some
it.
spells cost magic points. Some spells cost sanity.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah, maybe. No, I feel. Oh no, it was the one that I had. Was it cost sanity, but I could pump magic points into it and change the effect.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why I didn't just.
That's what I like about the Call of Cthulhu magic system, like the spells.
Yeah.
It's just throw it all together. Just like it does this, it costs that. It's whatever the wizard felt like at the time when they were making it.
Yeah.
Well, also,
It's
it
how much
we're
they
moving.
of humanity. Some of these spells are just not good. They're just not net positive, but you can still learn them and cast
Still
them.
magic. Yeah, it's still cool.
I think because it was the spell that like we had was the one that gave you like armor, but it was literally like it changed and thickened your skin. So like
Flesh
that makes sense for a
ward.
sanity thing, 'cause you're like, oh god, this is awful. What?
Ugh. Yeah. Okay. So Gaspar, is it just gonna be
What's
Gaspar and
Paul doing?
Nancy are gonna go and do this? Oh yeah, because everyone else. Sorry. Lastly, Paul, what would you like to be working on?
I think we talked about funeral stuff being basically an activity in itself, and it makes sense that I would. That has to get done. We can't forget that one.
I think it's a half a thing, unless, and you can just take a penalty dice on another task you're pursuing, unless you just want to work on that, and you can really go all out.
I might start researching the ridge then for the other thing. I think that when I don't want to. Our wizard is looking into things, so I won't subvert the wizard. That
Sure.
sounds like a bad idea.
Wizard's going to the lake to cast spells, but yeah.
Yeah, that all sounds.
Jim, do you want to
sensible.
look into the ridge, as in the like location and the stuff about it, or are you looking for alternate ley lines?
I guess I can start. I can have a try at looking for alternate ley lines. Would that be an occult roll or libraries roll?
Good point. It does feel. I think it's in the Orn library. Are they not the same? I think it probably is more occult, though. I think that's a good point. I think libraries is going to be tough.
I just start researching the ridge. A nice old.
I
regular-
might just require a harder success if you go for the. Honestly, ley lines are going to be difficult to find regardless, and it's going to take a while.
Sure.
Okay, so Ridge. All right, let's get
Ridge.
some rolls. So first of all, Luce, could you give me an art craft welding roll? It's gonna be a straight roll, and Jim, could you give me a library use? And then we'll zoom in on
It is
Gaspar.
under art and craft.
And I've got a penalty.
You do, yes, thank you. Immediately forgot that.
Rude.
No dice.
Really.
Okay. Anyone feel like spending a bunch of luck? Otherwise, you can try again next week.
34.
And I'll flag for
Paul.
Luce for your own. You've created vessels. It's getting the runes and everything into them, and I'm also assuming you're creating 3, so that you've got one in the event the other is opened. Like while you're there, build a backup.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
16 luck for loose. That's chump change.
16.
I think.
Bit.
71 minus 55.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah. 1 down to 61, and then 6. Yeah, 16.
It does look weird. I agree. There's something about 71 and 55 that
They
feel
seem
much
further
The
apart.
70s are.
71 minus 11 is 60. Minus 5 is 55.
Yeah.
Um,
16.
It's still sizable, but just
Yeah,
doable.
it is.
Not for loose. It's just real 65
I mean,
luck.
that still puts me down under 50. That's like a decent chunk.
It's up to you. Your other
Um,
options are they're good enough, have a whack. That's my preferred option. Or do it again next week. Or bail on the welding format and just make them out of like paper mache or something a bit. That's actually honestly
No,
kind
no.
of the like they're good enough, have a whack roll.
Yeah, no, I think doing this without the support of like someone helping with the magic or the chant, like Luce is practical. So I think going the urns are well made, but she's just not confident with the other elements, and will probably lean on like, hey, I'm gonna want someone to help with this bit. I just don't feel confident getting this done. I'm not the magic user. I can put together a vessel, which I have done.
Okay. So we'll
yeah.
extend this out to the next week. And you can continue the work on them then. Jim, 30 points. Quick 3
No, and on a penalty die anyway. Yeah, I think it's. I get one evening at a library amongst all of the work that I've been doing, setting up stuff, and then there's a nice librarian who reminds me of the clerk at the Greyport, and I get into a conversation and waste all my
Gone.
time.
Rest of the week. Perfect. Okay, all right. Then the last thing we have to resolve for this session is Gaspar and Nancy casting an itty bitty spell. I mean, do you guys want to set the scene? Like, where do you find to cast this? You have the time to do this pretty sensibly. What's the environment?
But is there? I mean, is this clubhouse fancy enough to have like a pool situation?
Yeah, like a duck pond out the back, I reckon. That is possibly then in view of the whole, like, the people that work here and the cultists.
I've seen this spell take down a house. We can't do it in a town, in a city.
Right, well, let's go camping.
I think we gotta go camping.
Okay.
Why not?
So you guys make your way a little bit out of town and following the river along at night, you find a bend where there's a sort of like larger, small lake, and with the car parked.
Oxbow Lake.
Perfect. With the car parked up on the, like, just off the road with the, like, torches, the headlights looking down on the two of you. Nance, you take a step to the side. Gaspar gestures you back a little bit further. You take another step back, and you have your sort of notebook there as Gaspar sort of flares his hands and intends to cast the Flame of the Ancients out onto the lake. Gaspar, any preparation? Any little psyching yourself up, or just have a whack, let her rip?
I think I'm more kind of steeling myself against myself. I'm going to try saying Nancy's here to help.
Yep.
Because I know what I'm like, and on some level I know that my paranoia about Luce and Paul is unfounded as well, but it's just easier to go along with it. And so now I'm trying to get ahead of the paranoia coming back in as far as Nancy's going. So yeah, just she's here to help. She can handle it.
Okay. You prepare?
That's what I'm thinking about more than the spell itself.
Love it. Alright. I'm gonna need a hard power roll from you.
Oh heck, I forgot about that. Can I have a bonus die?
I don't think so, particularly because Nancy
No, I don't
isn't
think so
in
either.
the fold.
I was just gonna ask.
Sometimes
No,
it's
there's
worth
no
it.
reason, but there's sometimes worth asking. Huh?
We're looking at a 19.
That's doable. I think this is the time to spend 19 points of luck. At the
Okay.
top of the chapter, just rolled 60. No, my last chapter I rolled like 25 or 30 or
Yeah,
something at the
the
start.
Greens are
That's-
not good on luck last chapter.
That's as good as I could have hoped for, honestly. That's
Hang
a
on.
strong start.
What? How do you have 40 power? Did you start with 40
Yeah,
sanity?
he's the worst to be a wizard.
Worst
Okay,
possible
cool.
choice.
He's at
This
this
is
the
why he
whole
went
time.
crazy
It's
immediately.
amazing we've
Right.
gotten to this session.
Okay,
It was just
that's
pure chance, I think, because I had a really high spot hidden, so I think that's why I found
Just
the first
found the
spell.
book.
I
So
genuinely thought we
funny.
were leaving this to Gaspar because he had high power.
No.
Okay.
Heck no,
Cool, cool,
this
cool.
was never the part of
This
the
is what has
plan.
caused the problem in the first place. That
That's
our
very
wizard
fair.
has low power.
Also,
There's...
I.
Go ahead. I was going to say there's still a chance it goes wrong. Yeah, you go.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. No, I just finally looked at my character sheet properly and realized that I really, at some point during this whole thing, should have asked if I could have swapped, because I have engineering, like
Yeah.
the science engineering, I also have welding. I don't know why I have engineering. I guess because I
think
learned
for
it.
your
My
job, it-
engineering is 70.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't need that. Like,
You're a
what?
good engineer. You guys ever been to London Bridge?
Apparently.
That's more like inventing new things like you did with the bomb.
Yeah, and like
'Cause
sciences and things.
yeah.
I think it
Although
tracks.
I'm pretty sure I did mechanical repair for the bomb, and I've done welding for the physical stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this engineering's doing for me, because it's high and useless.
Let's
Put it into power.
let's draw a circle around this. Draw a circle around this spell. So it takes 3 rounds to cast. There is a bunch of chanting as Gaspar sort of holds his hands, tenses his forearms, and crackles his fingers towards a distant point that he has picked out on the surface of the lake. Nancy, from your perspective, the first part of it, you're a little bit taken aback because he speaks with a sort of like brash, loud confidence, like enforcing his will on reality that you hadn't really seen through the rest of his character review. Then as the as another 10 seconds draws past, you're sort of looking at him and beginning to try and figure out. He's doing it in Gaelic, and you can actually follow a little of it. He's trying to pull out fire from beyond reality. He's trying to tear it away and reveal that which burns behind all. And then it's just as the third that's going that you go, huh, I wonder what he thinks is about to happening. And then there's
Is he already saying it? Is it already happening for
as
him? I don't.
the water is like pulled back, ripped wetly away, and from within it, this huge, roaring, howling flame erupts up into the sky, blinding you momentarily as you blink and stumble away, and then continues. And you can see Gaspar grinning as he holds it in place as it continues to burn. And Nancy, I need you to make a sanity roll. Gaspar, you've actually seen this spell cast before, so you don't need to make a sanity roll. I think we didn't have you do it the last time. Nancy will still take 1 point for seeing this cast, but you have just seen him pull fire from nothing and burn water. Gaspar, you can feel it beginning to fade away, but you can hold it for a moment. What do you say in this moment? Like, vindication again? What's your reaction to this?
Good. On to the next one.
He's just the
Pull
best
out the next
wizard.
spell.
Well, consider my reality adjusted. Onward.
Hell yeah.
That's it? That's a...
I told you I was willing to have my reality, my perception of reality.
I feel like there's a thing as... I feel like there's such a thing as too willing.
She's on board. Alright.
There are
And
certain East Asian religions where there is a thing called a curse eater, and if you've ever seen one of those, or there's a lot happening in the world, of which most of us have no idea. Now I have a little bit more of an idea.
Okay. Good.
and the two of you return to the car and head back towards Arkham. 1 week has passed of your 2 weeks of preparation, and there'll be several people in the morning that ask about the sort of like something, the glimmer on the horizon or something they saw, and maybe there's a couple of slightly singed pigeons in the region, but apart from that, you are unscathed. And when you return, Gaspar can take back up the third fragment and begin his study of the final 2 spells, the binding and the summoning of Agran Talon Soth, although you will need to join the order to pursue those completely.
Someone went fishing and then char grilled the fish they caught and then put them back.
Crazy stuff.
Weird stuff.
I mean, fish have fallen from the sky before.
It's again, just be willing to adjust your reality, as Nancy would say. Fantastic. All right, well,
Fish spontaneously combust now.
you never
in the
know.
water.
You just never know. That is where we're going to park this session. We'll pick back up next week to conclude our
stuff.
preparations, and then, hey, let's maybe summon a god or something. Let's just see what that does.
Yeah.
Give it a whirl. That's what I say.
The worst that could happen.
That's it.
Don't say that.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you all for playing. We will be back in the same time, in the same place next week. We very much hope we will see you there. Ciao.